Tucker Carlson lost his temper in a pre-recorded interview that apparently happened last month. Now, this interview was with a historian who made headlines after he spoke at Davos. He was specifically talking about the money in politics issue. He was talking about taxes, and Carlson thought, hey, he might be a good guest to have on. Now, before we get to the exchange that these two had, I want to give you a little sense of what this historian was talking about at Davos. His name is Rutger Bregman, and he's awesome. Take a look.
I mean, 1,500 private jets have flown in here to hear Sir David Attenborough speak about, how we're wrecking the planet. And I mean, I hear people talk in the language of participation and justice and equality and transparency. But then, I mean, almost no one raises the real issue of tax avoidance, right? And of the rich just not paying their fair share. I mean, it feels like I'm at a firefighters conference and no one's allowed to speak about water. I mean, this is not rocket science. I mean, we can talk for a very long time about all these stupid philanthropy schemes. We can invite Bono once more, but come on, we gotta be talking about taxes. Yeah, exactly. That's it, taxes, taxes, taxes. All the rest is bullshit, in my opinion.
That was, if you're watching the video version of this, it was censored with JR's face. I don't know if you caught that, but that was awesome.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, so you get a sense of where this historian's head is at. We would probably agree with most of what he has to say. But nonetheless, Tucker Carlson decides to have him on his show. And again, this is a pre-recorded interview that he never aired. This interview never aired. So here's a little bit of the exchange, and it starts getting pretty heated in following clips. But let's take a look at the first one.
The vast majority of Americans, for years and years now, according to the polls, including Fox News viewers and including Republicans, are in favor of higher taxes on the rich. Higher inheritance taxes, higher top marginal tax rates, higher wealth taxes. It's all really mainstream. But no one's saying that at Davos, just as no one's saying it on Fox News, right? And I think the explanation for that is quite simple, is that most of the people in Davos, but also here on this channel, have been bought by the billionaire class. You're not meant to say these things. So I just went there and I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna say it, just as I'm saying it right here on this channel.
So you can't see Tucker Carlson because that appears to be Bregman's recording of it. Now, he suspected that it might never make it to air. He was right, it didn't make it to air because he very aggressively challenged Fox News when he was invited on, to the point where Tucker Carlson explodes at the end, and we'll show you that. But I do want to give you all the facts. When Tucker brought him on, he was complimentary and was excited to have him on. Now, why was he excited to have him on? He liked 2 out of the 3 topics that the historian brought up at Davos. He liked the issue of, hey, they took 1,500 jets there, and so that's a common Fox News talking point. Hey, you want to talk about climate change, but you guys use jets, ha. Now, if Bregman doesn't want to play along with that, I love it. Love it, love it, love it, okay? So yeah, Tucker, rest of Fox News, you guys fight climate change, and then you'll get to have a conversation about hypocrisy on climate change. Total nonsense talking point on that. But Tucker did want to talk about tax avoidance, and I think he was legit on that, and they never really quite got to it because of how much conflict there was immediately in the interview. Now, but the reason there was a conflict is because Bregman kept bringing up tax increases, which Tucker didn't want any part of.
Exactly. So before we go to the next clip, you want to jump in?
I just love watching that clip of Bregman. That was like walking into a bullfighting ring dressed like the Flash. Like that was incredible. So much fun to watch.
Well, it gets better. It gets better. So without further ado, let's watch the situation heat up.
Many people have called for higher taxes, but very few.
Well, not on this channel, is it? I mean, almost all of the pundits on this channel for years have been against higher taxes, right? Even though the vast majority of Americans is in favor of it.
I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to know how many hours of Fox you've watched, but I'm interested in what you said about tax avoidance.
So I think the issue really is one of corruption and of people being bribed and of not being, not talking about the real issues. What the family, what the Murdochs basically want you to do is to scapegoat immigrants instead of talking about tax avoidance. So I'm glad you're now finally raising the issue, but that's what's been happening for the past couple of years.
And I'm taking orders from the Murdochs. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, it doesn't work that directly. But I mean, you've been part of the Cato Institute, right? You've been a senior fellow there for years. You've been taking their dirty money. They're funded by cock billionaires, you know?
Wait, why don't you tell me how it does work?
Well, it works by you taking their dirty money. It's as easy as that. I mean, you are a millionaire funded by billionaires. That's what you are. And I'm glad you now finally jumped the bandwagon, you know, of people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. But you're not part of the solution, Mr. Carlson. You're part of the problem, actually.
So, as Missy Elliott once said, pass that Dutch. He's a Dutch historian.
Yes, I got it.
And by the way, I don't know what "pass that Dutch" means, so I hope it's not a bad thing.
You probably don't making that reference right now, but we'll skip it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. Don't pass that Dutch.
Okay.
I like the Dutch. Let's keep the Dutch.
Yeah.
Okay. As Missy Elliott once said, work it, reverse it, and flip it, or whatever she said.
Yeah. That's what he was also doing. He was flipping it. He was
and reversing
it.
it. Okay, no, seriously, guys. So let's dive in again. So when he says you're funded by the Koch brothers through the Cato Institute in the past, and now the Murdoch at Fox News, etc., it is a cathartic moment for a lot of people. But this is like a mild critique, but Tucker was open to the conversation. I wish they'd have gone further in that conversation about tax avoidance, because some of the biggest companies in the world does it. And if you've got, and the part that I didn't love is him saying you're part of the problem, not the solution, because in some ways, Tucker's anti-big business stance is interesting and one that should be encouraged in the right wing.
I question how authentic it is. And I find it strange that you're siding with Tucker Carlson on this.
I'm not siding with Tucker Carlson. I love some of the things that Bregman said, but Tucker was open to some portion of that conversation, and I want the right wing thinking about, hey, how come Amazon paid no taxes last year?
Bregman did come there to roast. It's very clear. I mean, with the research of his bio, I don't think Bregman came there to have that conversation. I think Bregman came there to roast him for what he's been doing.
And to record it and to put it out later, right? I think that he's recording it on purpose.
Which is also fine.
And it's, I said, it's cathartic. I love 89% of what he's saying.
Yeah.
I wish the Fox News audience got to hear it a little bit more, and obviously it got spiked, and then Tucker's gonna blow in a second. But afterwards, Bregman said, I wish when he asked me that question, the one you just watched, I'd given him the Chomsky quote. The things he said were true and very on point, but Chomsky said, I'm sure you believe everything you're saying, but what I'm saying is that if you believe something different, you wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting. And that's exactly right. Right? So Tucker Carlson didn't need to get a memo from Murdoch saying, say this stuff. Because if he'd been saying anything but the things that helped the millionaires and the billionaires, he would have never gotten the job in the first place. It's a point I've often made, and I was so disappointed to see Chomsky had made it, because I thought I had that epiphany. I was like, I discovered it. But it turns out, of course.
I love that Bregman was like, here's how it works. And then after that, Tucker Carlson was like, well, why don't you tell me how it works? It's like, but did you watch the clip? Because he just told you. He just said that.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like Tucker Carlson had a hard time concentrating and focusing because he was so angry.
Yeah.
And this next clip will show you just that.
It's true, right? It's true, right? That all the anchors on Fox, they're all millionaires. How is this possible? Well, it's very easy. You're just not talking about certain things.
Fox doesn't even play where you are.
It doesn't play where you are. Well, have you heard of the internet? I can watch things whatever I want, you know?
I've never seen Fox before.
I have, actually. I can't say I'm a great fan of your show, but I do my homework when you invite me on your show. So, I mean, you're probably not gonna air this, but I went to Davos to speak truth to power. And I'm doing exactly the same thing right now. You might not like it, but you're a millionaire funded by billionaires, and that's the reason why you're not talking about these issues.
Oh. But I am talking about these issues.
Yeah, only now. Come on, you jumped the bandwagon. You're all like, oh, I'm against the globalist elite, blah, blah, blah. It's not very convincing, to be honest.
Why don't you go yourself, you tiny brain, and I hope this gets picked up. because you're a moron. I tried to give you a hearing, but you were too annoying for me.
You can't handle the criticism, can you?
Oh, I love every part of that. It shows you that Tucker Carlson is a fraud, right? Like
I don't think it shows you that at all.
Yeah, this is who he is. Jake, this is who he is.
It shows you that he also does not think quickly. There was that long pause, and then he just cursed at him. You'd think a guy who's been named Tucker his entire life would be quicker with comebacks.
That's a good point. No.
So him going to cursing, look, I curse, I don't care.
But if that's all you go to, I curse all the time on stage too, but that's all he had.
Right. No, him calling him a moron and tiny brain made no sense in that context because the guy's obviously making good points, intelligent points. So when you go to your standard, you're a moron, that means you don't have anything.
Also, when you use the size of your brain as the measure of intelligence, that doesn't bode well for your argument of how smart you are.
Right.
Okay, but so look, I could be wrong about this. I do believe that Tucker Carlson and an interesting percentage of the right wing have gotten to a point where they realize big business is screwing them. Okay, I think that's a really important revelation. I've now talked to 3 different conservatives on air here who say, yeah, I don't like big corporate power either. Now, the mythology that Murdoch, Fox News, and the Republican Party has been pushing down our throats for all this time is big business is awesome, the rich are awesome, give all the money to the rich and multinational corporations that are American companies, and they will be patriotic and trickle it all over you. Okay, so that's the big lie. If Tucker Carlson and some portion of the right wing have gotten to the point where they are beginning to realize that some portion of that is a lie, I welcome that. But on the other hand, all the points that Bregman is making are overall, of course, correct. The reason that people get hired on Fox News is to push that lie generally. That's why I'm a little curious as to why Tucker still hasn't been fired, because he is from time to time doing that. Now, part of the reason is he's getting big ratings. Why? Because the right wingers at home don't like big business either. No one's ever liked big business. And a lot of the mainstream media, since they are big business, push that mythology. It's not just Fox News. CNN does it, MSNBC does it. Oh, the American people love big business. No, they don't. They pretty much despise big business.
So can I jump in? Because I think that there's a wrinkle to the story that doesn't get talked about much. Now, while Tucker Carlson has been talking about some of the economic issues, economic injustices that we've been railing against on this show for a long time, he does have one main focus, and that has to do with these major tech companies, which he and his audience and most conservatives perceive as liberal corporations. Now, are they actually liberal? On social issues, they pretend to be, or maybe genuinely are. But when it comes to issues that actually really impact us day to day, when it comes to paying their taxes, when it comes to fiscal policy, they are not on the left. They're very much on the right, and he loves, Tucker Carlson specifically, loves to go against Amazon. So look, there is an ideological and partisan component to it. And I'll take it because I don't care about the partisan leanings of the corporation. Every corporation should pay its fair share in taxes, period. But Tucker Carlson was never talking about this type of story a year ago or 2 years ago. All of a sudden, it's a big story for him because you're right, it is polling well when it comes to Republicans and Democrats. People are angry and upset about economic injustices. But more importantly, there's also a convenient partisan angle that they take, and that's to go after Silicon Valley and the Amazons of the world. And so it's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
It's also interesting to see him rail against big business and then look at all of the sponsors of the show.
Yeah.
Which now maybe he can get a new one, the Dunning-Kruger effect. It is amazing to me that someone like Tucker Carlson is still on the air. Because the first time he kind of rose to prominence was when Jon Stewart intellectually pantsed him in front of all of us. That was how most people even heard his name for the first time, when he was that silly bow tie wearing guy who couldn't go toe to toe with his own guest. And this is just a new version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny because Tucker's been establishment for as long as we've known cable news. He's gone to every single channel, and all he's ever done is establishment right-wing talking points. Now that he's finally come around to at least one interesting and correct point of view, I don't love that this is the time that everybody turns on him.
I don't trust him.
Okay,
It's not that I've turned on him. I've never believed him or trusted him or liked him in the first place.
I've faced him that whole time.
Look, yeah, I hear you guys on all of that, and you can go back and watch all my clips on Tucker Carlson. I've got a long history of that, but I think that the only reason Bregman got invited onto Fox News in the first place is because Tucker Carlson was interested in that conversation. No other Fox News host would have ever invited him on, because Sean Hannity's not going to tell you about how big business is ripping you off. It's inconceivable. He's a Murdoch-made robot, okay? So Carlson's not a robot, and for the first time in his life, he's interesting. So that's why there's a little bit of irony here, and it clearly was a trap, and he fell into it. Let's just keep it real, that's what happened.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.